Okay, well, I'm here to review a film which is a little bit out of my usual wheelhouse. It's not a horror film, nor is it a sci-fi film. It is a sword and sorcery adventure film. It's Hawk the Slayer, as you'll know, as after all, you clicked on a video that said Hawk the Slayer. It's directed by Terry Marcel and it stars John Terry, Jack Palance, Harry Andrews, Annette Crosby, Roy Keane, all kinds of people. It's one of them things where even if you don't know the names, if you start watching this, you're going to recognise face after face that you know. This film was released in 1980, and I was born in 1981, so it came out before I was even born. But I was watching this film from about the age of 5, and it would have been one of the very first sort of fantasy films that I was allowed to watch. It was, to some degree, this film that got me into things like Hero Quest and, sword and sorcery RPGs, that sort of thing. So this film is like a very important part of my childhood that would have a massive long-lasting effect on me. And this would have been my introduction to a lot of fantasy races. You see, the film starts with two brothers. One, Voltan, played by Jack Palance, who is the evil brother, and Hawk, his younger brother, who is the hero. Now, Hawk has a team, basically, who he assembles during this film. And one of them is a one-handed man who fires a crossbow. You then have Gort, a giant who wields a giant hammer. Crow, an elf who uses a bow. And Boldin, a dwarf with a whip. So, it's a lot of your fantasy staples. On top of this, there is a witch. And there is a form of warlocky devil figure. And it's got that kind of almost cartoon quality in that people are killed left, right and centre, but you don't really see blood. So somebody's run through with a sword or shot with a bow and they just fall over. So it is kind of a perfect fantasy film for kids because there's all of the good guys, bad guys, suspense, but no violence. You're not going to see Conan style heads rolling across the floor here. Some decisions in this film do kind of date it though. The magic is a lot of smoke machines and ping pong balls that have been altered to be luminous flying about, and compared to some of the other stuff they are a little bit silly and camp, but I don't think it harms the film. The music is also a sort of fantasy disco montage. It really has to be listened to be believed. Yeah, I'm not insulting it. It's kind of crazy, but it's also brilliant. I would listen to it on my phone on the way to work. It's a cool, cheesy, weird soundtrack that I just love. And I do like the fact that it is not just unnamed people dying. I'm not going to spoil and say what happens, but major characters who you will actually have found yourself to like, who in fact might be your favourite characters, will die, whether they be good or bad. And I like the idea that being good and doing the right thing isn't body armour, that there's a sense of sacrifice. I would really, really recommend that if you're into your dwarves and giants and elves and fantasy, that you give this film a watch. And I just love the concept of things in it. Like, it has a sword, the mind sword, which you call to you with your mind. You think of it coming to your hand, it will come to your hand. Don't take this thing too seriously. Expect effects for the time. Deal with the fact that some of it can be a bit cheesy, and there's some great stuff here. Jack Palance absolutely acts his heart out, and he's just a very, very memorable villain. In fact, I think I found myself being drawn to repeating his lines more as a kid than any of the heroes. The film really ends like there'd be a sequel, and apparently there was plans for a sequel, and it never happened. And then there was Kickstarters for a sequel, there was plans for a video game, there's plans for a TV series, none of which has quite materialised yet. I think the only thing we've got, and this only happened in the start of 2020, is that a Hawk the Slayer comic has either been published or is going to be published in the Judge Dredd magazine. It's one of those films, though, that really has a sort of legendary cult status. And I was quite surprised to find that I could get it on Blu-ray, because there's a lot of films I watched on VHS as a kid that just do not seem to have made their way to this format. Anyway, I strongly advise you watch Hawk the Slayer. It's a brilliant little cheesy 80s time capsule, which I wish would actually get a bona fide... Well, I suppose you'd have to do a remake now followed by a sequel, because a sequel now, you know, everybody's probably too old unless you based it on their kids. Okay, that's Kerr9000 signing off saying keep on watching those movies.